My name is Юрієм Поляківським, and this is Ukraine, Untold Stories. Ukraine is full of so many stories that transcend or are greater than the war stories. Now, we are starting this podcast to tell you stories that are not just war-based, but that will show you or to create a greater sense of knowledge of the narrative that is going on here in Ukraine during the war. And this is what is of interest to me. I've been here for almost 12 years, and what I began to realize almost from the very beginning is that Ukraine is a very nuanced society. You know, many people say that Ukraine is this or Ukraine is that, and they want to shape the narrative as they see fit. However, Ukraine is not like that. Ukraine wants to set up its own narrative, its own sense of how to define itself. And therefore, that it requires is an understanding that we are creating here in Ukraine a new narrative. We want to explore that. Ukraine is also undergoing a process of transformation. Since the Maidan took place, it was not just a question of reform. This was a mistake made by the Western partners of Ukraine's Western partners, who were still stuck in a mindset of post-Soviet thinking. What I want to say here is they felt that there would be an emphasis or to understand Ukraine in the same way that they understood Russia, which was through glasnost or perestroika. This was a big mistake. And Ukrainian partners have missed it, especially the United States. And so what I want to suggest to you is that it's not so much going through a process of reform as much as it is going through a process of transformation. And what do I mean by this? What we want to explore is the definition of transformation. And what does it mean? Transformation is almost a scientific term that suggests that when you add certain elements into a beaker, right, that they have the elements there have a way of changing the very nature of what you have. So more simply, transformation is when you add a bit of elements into already accepted beaker, if you will, that will change the nature of the nature of that society. Again, I'll say that Ukraine is undergoing or attempting to undergo a transformation. The transformation being that their introduction of new elements that will change the very nature of society. The purpose of our podcast is to explore the issues and themes in a post-war society, meaning that we want to discuss here what are the stories, or what are the elements of society that are going to be in existence in a post-war society. I'll tell you what my bias is. My bias is that I think that Ukraine will win this war against Russia. And the question that many people ask is, when is the war in Ukraine going to come to an end? I would say that may not be the fundamental question, because the question that's being asked by soldiers or those who are fighting the war is not so much as when will the war end? But the question that they ask, what type of society will we have? What type of society will we build after the war? That's what we want to explore and talk about. I first came to Ukraine in 1989. That's if you do the math, you can understand that's a very long time ago. Came in the 1990s, in the mid of the 1990s, and then more importantly, I came and began the last stage of my etap here, which came 2 days after the students were beaten up. And so I was there at the Maidan quite at the beginning. that to me was a time of, I thought, revolution. But it was not so much a revolution. As I began to think about what was going on in Maidan, I realized something. I realized that this was a full-blown societal rebellion against corruption and against the way that things were. What people wanted was, they did not want to live in the residue of communism, the oligarchy, the lack of pursuit of the law, and so on. But what they wanted was a change. Like I said earlier, a transformation. I learned two very important things here in my time since the Maidan, and that is two things. The first being that all men, politicians in particular, all men are sinners. Meaning they fail to meet the mark of what it is to be properly behaved in the public square. More importantly, what you see missing here is you feel a missing formula or a missing model for proper behavior or definition of what it means to be a good man. The country here is struggling with that definition. The second thing that I learned is the centrality of the dignity of a human being. There is no sense of worth here, what it means to be a human being. And this is shown, especially in this area of the world. You see it with the behavior of the Russians and their behavior towards Ukraine. What they want to do and it's so clear, what they want to do is they want to destroy the people. They want to destroy this idea of nation. But Ukraine is different, and what they want to do, and this is the thing that I learned and some of the things one of the things that I want to get across in these programs is to talk about the dignity of a human being. What can be accomplished by a human being in terms of art, in terms of pursuit of ways to change the society, of behavior, and so on. This is what is of interest to me, and this is what I think the stories are going to be talking about. When I first came to Ukraine, I came from a perspective from a very democratic one. Meaning that I was born in Toronto in Canada, and I came here and I already had a view of how politics are supposed to be done, or how a society has to function. So what I did, and I admit this, and this is my bias, the fact that I looked at the Ukrainian society using a democratic model as a basis for a critiquing of society. And so what I ended up doing after a few years, I ended up taking positions in writing for journals like the Kiev Post. I had written there for a while, a number of articles there, you can check that out. Also, I wrote for New Europe, which is out of Brussels. I wrote a number of things there. I also wrote for the Atlantic Council, a Washington-based organization. I also wrote for the Globe and Mail, as well as numerous accounts accounts here in Ukraine. Not only did I write articles for the papers that I just mentioned to you before, I wrote a book on the Maidan called The Lament of a Promise. And there what I did is I explored the various themes of the Maidan, the heart-wrenching questions that were being asked and the sacrifices that were made. That led me to a very important I don't know what the word is. Don't know what the word is I've forgotten the word in English. I accomplished something. I became, with the publishing of the book Lament, I became the first foreign-born member of the associations of Ukrainian writers and poets. I was the fourth one in Canada, but my colleagues there were all born here in Ukraine. But I was the first one that was born outside of the borders of Ukraine. Something that I'm very proud of. Then I wrote another book, a compilation of my articles that I wrote for New Europe and Kiev Post that were based on and published on the first and on the anniversary of the first year of the war, and that was called Dispatches Amidst the Sirens and the Bombs. That's available on Amazon. And lastly, what I just wrote in last year, which is in the process of being published, is a book on Bucha. So what it should tell you is that I have a vast experience in, well, telling stories from Ukraine. And this is the whole purpose of doing these podcasts, to get them off to you quickly. You'll find that there are things that I strongly believe. I believe in independent Ukraine. It's not. I believe in a sovereign Ukraine. Right? So these are things that they are no longer questions. My listeners, you may question all that, but for me, there's no deviance of that. So I'll leave you with that. This is the introduction to the podcast. I hope that you will tune in or subscribe rather, and that will be available to you to do all that and to support the work that will go forward. Hopefully, maybe once a week we'll tell you a story. We'll do something, and there will be between, say, maybe 15-20 minutes, maybe half an hour long. Sometimes I will interview guests. Some of them already have obliged to come on to the podcast. Nevertheless, these will be stories that will be told again from here. I'm based here now in Lviv, but hopefully we will have people speak from all over Ukraine. So anyway, I invite you to comment on this and to subscribe, maybe even become a patron. Nonetheless, this is Юрієм Поляківським for Ukraine, Untold Stories. See you next week.